How's everybody?
Good.
All right, good. Thanks for coming. For thanks for inviting me. For sure. And so she asked a few questions, right? And I figured before I actually would read a few things, I wanted to get into some of the things that she sort of wanted to talk about. And some of the things I actually thought was really interesting in terms of my self-representation as an artist post 9/11, which is interesting because I don't even think I started writing until 9/11, to be honest with you. Just sort of a little backstory. I was incarcerated, and I was originally sentenced to 15 years, and my sentence got commuted after 5 years. I was sent to this drug program in Durham, North Carolina, and my second year there, that's when 9/11 happened. And I was just beginning to find my way as a writer, or even beginning to think about writing and what that actually meant. And what did it mean to be a poet and all of those things? I didn't even know. I was trying to sort of figure that out at that time. But as I think about that question, looking back now, I think one of the things in terms of, writing post 9/11 is sort of forced the artist or the writer to think outside of his own existence in terms of domestically, in terms of taking a more global approach to the problems that sort of face humanity. I think a lot of times before 9/11 we were sort of insulated in our own problems, and so we didn't necessarily think to try to sort of reach out outside of that existence. And the perfect example of that is this book by Brian Turner called Here Bullet. I don't know if you've ever read that book. Tremendous book. It's sort of like that takes this other look at other cultures, and while we're in this sort of war. So anyway, thought that was interesting. What does it mean to be part of a collective? Well, for me, it has been everything. I'm a Kavi Khanum fellow. I went to a retreat for 3 years. Kavi Khanum is this retreat that was founded by Toy Derricott and Cornelius Eady. It was this space to sort of create this safe space for African Americans to sort of be mentored. And so I was mentored by some really great poets for 3 years. Some, Rita Dove, Lucille Clifton, Yusef Komunyakaa, Elizabeth Alexander, the list, so it's one of those things. And so it was really instrumental into my, even the confidence factor that you can sort of do this because you see other people that look like you just doing it. They're not guessing, they're really doing it. So that was really great. And it's been proven to be sort of a place that has sort of allowed me to operate as an artist. I'm also part of Afro-Relation Poets, which is a collective founded by Nikki Finney and Frank X. Walker. And it's so I'm kind of all over the place. You'll see this in a minute because I'm originally from Alabama, and so I come from the Afro-Relation region. So that so this sort of term was coined by Frank Walker in terms of African Americans living in the Appalachian region. So it's Afro-Relation Poets, and so it's a collective of poets that sort of write about that region. And I'm a member of the symphony, the house that Etheridge built with Dwayne Betts, Reginald Dwayne Betts, who's actually another guy that's formerly incarcerated, who's at Yale right now, getting his law degree. John Murillo, a guy named Marcus Jackson. And what we do, we go around the country and we do readings because all of us was influenced by this prison poet named Etheridge Knight. And so we go around the country and we go into juvenile detention centers and we do workshops and things like that. So all of these collectives provide a way for me to sort of like figure out, to sort of find my own humanity first of all, but also coming from where I come from to give something back, right? And so that's very important for me. And so as an artist and as a writer, I'm able to explore different avenues and reach across cultures and things like that. So. Okay, so I'll shut up now. I'm about to read something. Because of time, I'm going to read maybe 2 poems and a short piece of an excerpt of a memoir coming out in the fall. It's called Hook. It sort of talks a little bit about that sort of transition from going to prison to getting out of prison, things like that. Ars Poetica, a Black Man's Primer. If in a car remain calm at the one-eye cyclops, pull over. Place hands at 11 and 3, assume this will not go okay. Recall Brown, Bell, Martin, a trail of blood. Ignore the raven hovering the rooftop. It's not a matter of respect, speech, or liberty. Understand survival be now, if you survive. Swallow that pride as it can foster death. Forget all men are created equal. 24-hour news cycles reveal unarmed Ferguson man shot with hands in the air. Or police chokehold turns wrong in Staten Island again. Ignore the raven and please remember, you the invisible boogeyman, a 3D fright. A proletariat coming home with attitude. Open season means you, baby boy. The target zeroed into a circling bullseye. You, this is not a game or a test, but sadly you the game. Facts will be misremembered. He lunged, appeared to have, a bulge, looked wrong, reach, a shiny object. The raving, hovering, wants your death. Fuck that. Take a breath and prepare for the figure approaching. Okay, so I was actually in San Salvador, Bahamas, in January, and if you know anything about that, it's where like Columbus discovered America, right? So, I couldn't help it, I'm sorry. Anyway, art meditation at Columbus Isle, San Salvador. Right here listening to the silly music echoing my ear, like I know why, poet, you can be suckered, the image-less emotional truth. Lies swallowed whole, and so we invest in nature to erase, to sell our political selves for a hand clap. Don't clap for me. Don't, because I want to sing with my whole self, if myself is an I. No more hurt, no more birds in the sky, but cataloging the memoir of violence, death, genocide seems a bit practical here where the known world began. Even though there are no clouds, a fine mist coming now. Is this what you want? If I cry alligator tears, will you award me for how I feel instead of revolt? If I write light blue water ripples and splotches reaching for the shore, instead of people are dying with hands past the clouds, will you clap for me, adore me? Yes, it has come to this. Your emotions, less what the world needs, the raceless speech to which language decomposes into hum. Don't clap for me, please. And so I'm gonna read this short piece. So I was incarcerated in Roxbury Correctional Center, which is in Hagerstown, Maryland. So this was this little chapbook came out a couple of years ago with just a prison section. So I read a little bit of that. Roxbury Correctional Institute is located in Hagerstown, Maryland, and is flanked by stoic mountains rising from the east and west, dairy farms in their agricultural sense, the wind whistling through the valley. The heaviest concentration of men are from Baltimore and help create the Baltimore-DC divide. Both are fairly large cities with high crime and drugs. The cities are 30 minutes apart by car, and within both inner cities there is an unwritten rule of competition. The unwritten rule in Roxbury dictated that I associate myself with DC folk, or risk being eaten alive by Baltimore. There are folks already in my housing unit who can vouch for my street credibility, that I am a legendary dude who hustled and played as fair as one could in the cutthroat game of hustling. This is a place where a reputation on the outside can help your status on the inside. My first cellmate, Debo, is from the district. Before we can get to any type of meaningful conversation, we perform the ritual of male bonding to see if one really knows the streets of Washington, D.C. like they claim. I can tell Debo is suspicious of me. By the same token, I am suspicious of him. After menial small talk, the conversations begins with how dudes sold fake televisions in the box to unsuspecting victims over by the shrimp boat on Minnesota Avenue. Debo mentions the Black Hole and Celebrity Hall hosting all the live go-go parties back in the day. And I concur. We both reminisce the heyday of Portland Avenue and the Jamaican Wars during the late 80s. This barrage of questions and answers continue until I'm determined to be legitimate. 6 years into a 60-year sentence for a murder that occurred in Prince George's County, Maryland, he then rambles in a raspy voice about why he hate Baltimore dudes. Them jokers be funny, homie. Can't trust them because most of them dope fiends for heroin. Don't expect for them to have your back. No, don't do that. If anything, they're going to light your ass up given the opportunity. Debo is 22 years old, and the state of Maryland tried and sentenced him as an adult. He knows nothing about manhood but what he learned behind iron bars. The older inmates serve as his role models and mentors, the closest thing to a father he will ever know. Roxbury is where he grew up and perhaps will die. The next day I move across the hall by way of even exchange. I move in with Big Pun in cell 17, and Kevin moves out of 17 and into 16 with Debo. Night is a deafening silence filling every inch of the housing unit with opaqueness, every stir amplified by the isolation of a closed cell door. The beat thump begins simple enough. It is an intense percussive, drawing on West African influences called go-go, the indigenous music of the District of Columbia. 2 cell doors down in cell 19, Sebastian got go-go fever induced by mail call after shift change. 5 years into an 8-year bid, his girlfriend, who stays in Clifton Terrace, informed him she will no longer vigil the memory of his street heroics. His image has faded from the landscape, and so would she. There is no question the right fist is ball, driving the cadence like a conductor calling out to a crew of Gandhi dancers laying 8-foot railroad track. Get a grip in your hand, whoa now, work with a chillin', whoa now. The left hand, palm open, balances the driving narrative of gut bucket pain, much like a mauling driving 6-inch spikes into the cross ties. Let it swing on down, whoa now. A combination of spiritual blues, work songs, and part field holler. Sebastian bangs, pulling each man to the edge of his bunk to listen to the coded message thump on a metal desk, doubling as a djembe. For 5 minutes, he holds us hostage with the same beat, the same goddamn beat, exhibiting how written language can kill the human spirit. Then he releases us to a much more faster, more complicated syncopation, the reverberated echo unique to each man's current temperament, so we each swallow long and hard in that temperament. If it were not for the razor wire blocking him from a dead-out sprint, Sebastian would sprint, scale the fence, and evaporate into the known world. He can't. And in the process of this revelation, concentrates harder on each individual thump, careful to press sorrow into the low note while the high one reprieves, offering everybody in CT a testimony on how a woman done him wrong. Reality dictates that I too will get a Dear John letter. There's helplessness in the way Sebastian bangs misery, which recedes with each minute elapsed into the future. When the elegiac rhythm ceases, the slow drag boot heel of the night shift guard replaces the vacated noise. She slowly makes her rounds, pointing the big head of a flashlight into each cell to make sure everyone is present and accounted for. When the strong beam of light pierces into my cell, I am on the edge of my bunk with a cigarette dangling from my lips, thinking and thinking.